Catherine, thanks very much for your time. I'll be very honest at admitting I didn't know children can get arthritis. How prevalent is this?
Gareth, you're not alone in that. Most people are surprised to learn that children can get arthritis. Nobody knows exactly, but it's thought to affect between 1 in 4 children per 1,000. So in South Africa, that's somewhere between 19 and 75,000 children.
It's a fairly significant number. When we talk about children, though, it's always a bit of a broad term. It could be up to the age of 18. So do we have an age range that it tends to affect kids?
Generally speaking, arthritis in children, juvenile arthritis is diagnosed before the age of 16. In South Africa, that's approximately 19 million people. So while 75,000 sounds like a lot, the birds will drop in the ocean, I'm afraid.
And as far as treatments, how different is this to arthritis for adults?
The most common form of adult arthritis is osteoarthritis, which is not an autoimmune disease. That's largely from wear and tear. Juvenile arthritis is more like rheumatoid arthritis in adults, and the treatments are in fact very similar. They start with anti-inflammatories, they move on to steroidal medications like cortisone, and in very resistant disease, children are treated with disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs called biologics.
Does juvenile arthritis go away? Is it like pimples? Is it something that you can grow out of, or are you pretty much stuck with it for your life?
It depends on the type. There are 7 subtypes of juvenile arthritis, and it depends entirely on the type, or to a large degree on the type. It's estimated that up to 50% of children will not suffer effects or symptoms in adulthood, but the others do continue to have what's called a flare of symptoms throughout their life.
The symptoms for this, obviously, as people begin to get older. My mom has arthritis, so the signs there are obviously very clear as she's getting a bit older. But I suppose it's a bit trickier to diagnose in children. They tend to fall and scrape and bump their joints. They probably have some pain on a regular basis. How is that different to now starting to panic about whether they have arthritis or not?
Well, your point is exactly right. It's very hard to diagnose in children because the early symptoms mimic common childhood ailments. So like you say, children will fall off jungle gyms or fall down and they'll have a sore knee. Children may have recurrent fevers. They may get rashes intermittently. The thing to bear in mind is if a child is getting those things, fevers, rashes, sore, swollen joints, or if they start to use their bodies differently, that's always a key thing to look out for. You know, perhaps they favor one arm over another, or they develop a slight limp. The key thing is if they are developing those symptoms in the absence of any obvious reason or cause. If the child is going to bed late and is sleep deprived, that would explain tiredness, for example. If the child has recently been rolling in the grass, that might explain a rash. But in the absence of any obvious cause, those symptoms recurring over a couple of weeks could point to something like juvenile arthritis.
And where do we go with that? Is this a regular GP? Does someone contact you at Arthritis Kids South Africa? What's the first point of contact?
Gareth, they're welcome to contact us and we can absolutely point them in the direction of the most appropriate specialist. The ideal thing would be to go to a pediatrician, but to take information about juvenile arthritis with them. Unfortunately, far too many GPs in our country don't necessarily recognize juvenile arthritis, or perhaps it's not the first thing that comes to mind, and that causes a delay in diagnosis. So if parents are concerned, perhaps take some information with, which they can get from our website or from us directly. But ideally go to a pediatrician who would then forward that case to a pediatric rheumatologist who's the most appropriate specialist.
And I appreciate this. I'm sure many people can go and look for you as well. Like I said, I had no idea there was such a thing as juvenile arthritis, but now it's out there. Catherine McCormack, thank you for your time. Executive Director of Arthritis Kids South Africa. I'm sure if you just Google that, that's how I found out about Catherine. I'm sure you can just go and Google that and get their contact details if you suspect or you're concerned that your little one under the age of 18 has arthritis. I know, who would have thought, but it does seem to be a problem.